Morris was founded in 1919 by William Richard Morris. He soon renames his car company from WRM Motors to Morris Motors. The first two models, the Oxford Bullnose and the Cowley Bullnose, were released in 1913 and 1915 respectively. Despite being built virtually all from third-party parts, the cars were easily identified from their distinctive round-top radiators, which gave the cars their Bullnose name. During the early 1920s, MG became a car company in its own right from modifying Morris Bullnose models, and by 1926, Morris is easily Britain's biggest car manufacturer, producing 42% of British-built cars. In 1928, Morris reveals the first-generation Miner. Despite the second-generation car being the most famous, the first model was hugely important. Morris had publicly set himself the challenge of bringing a £100 car to the people, and the Miner is how he succeeded. It cost the equivalent of £5,300 in today's money. In total, 86,000 were built. In 1935, Morris Motors acquires MG and Wolseley, who W.R. Morris already had significant control over by this point. In 1938, he acquires Riley too. In response to Ford's Model Y, 1935 saw the launch of the Morris 8. It had a 4-cylinder 900cc engine with 25 horsepower that was good for 60 miles an hour. It was Britain's best-selling car of the 1930s. In 1938, at government expense, Morris is given a new factory in Castle Bromwich. They were instructed to start building the Spitfire for World War II. Richard Morris was a strong anti-Semitic and was famously quoted for saying, "It is a well-known fact that every government in my England is Jew-controlled, regardless of the party in power." He was the individual who was in control of the Spitfire factory that by 1940 had failed to produce any. The government soon seized the factory. Also in 1938, Patrick Tuleman, a well-known blackmailer, attempted to kidnap Morris for a £100,000 ransom, which is the equivalent of £5.5 million today. The attempt failed, and Tuleman was arrested and spent 7 years in prison. In 1948, Morris releases its first new car for 10 years, the Morris Minor. It was long overdue, and Austin had already raced ahead in production numbers. The model was classed as an economy car. It was designed to be Britain's answer to the Citroën 2CV. It was available as a hatchback, a convertible, and an estate. They managed to sell 1.6 million units. In 1960, to celebrate a million Minors being produced, Morris releases the Minor 1 million. It's painted in a unique shade of lilac. 1948 also saw the launch of the Minor's big brothers, the Oxford and 6 Series MS, sharing the Minor's design but being bigger in size. They only sold the Oxford until 1959. However, the rights were sold to the Indian firm Hindustan, who built the car right up until 2014, technically giving the Oxford a production run of 66 years, the longest run of a single car model in history, beating the original Mini and the Beetle. In 1952, the Morris Group merges with Austin to become the BMC, the British Motor Corporation. In 1959, Morris and Austin both released their own versions of the Mini, a huge success and Britain's best-selling car to date. 1963 saw the launch of the Morris 1100, a joint project small family car with Austin. It's the best-selling car in the UK for 8 years during the 1960s and early 70s. The technical design was done by the same man who designed the Mini, with Pininfarina designing the body. 1964 sees another joint project with Austin, the product being the Morris 1800. It was a large family car. In 1965, it won the second ever European Car of the Year title. For the time, it was a very wide car. That, combined with its overall appearance, gave it the nickname Land Crab. In 1966, British Motor Corporation merges with Jaguar. It posted a £3.5 million loss in its first year. The government pressured them to merge with Leyland Motors in 1968, creating the British Leyland Motor Corporation. It employed over 250,000 people in Britain. 1971 saw the launch of the rear-wheel drive Morris Marina. It was designed to replace the Minor. Its development was rushed in the final stages, and early models had many issues, especially with the suspension. However, the car was a huge seller, being an unpretentious mass-market car that was well priced. Build quality and reliability were poor though, and British Leyland's reputation was slipping. The Marina got the reputation by many journalists and critics as being one of the world's worst-built cars. In 1980, a heavily redesigned Marina named the Ital was launched, but it was dated and never sold well, and the newly nationalised British Leyland was struggling financially, so there was no new funding to develop an all-new model. A few years later, the Ital was dropped, and at the same time, so was the Morris brand itself. Between 1998 and 1999, the first Auto Works group of China starts building estate, van and pickup variants of the Morris Ital. The model was named the Huanda CAC 6430. SAIC-owned Morris has recently revealed the new J3 electric van. with styling inspired by the Morris J-type van from the 1950s. It will feature a carbon fibre construction, an electric range of up to 200 miles and cost from £60,000.